Hello Internet, hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jackie Fox, and I'm just sitting here looking at future updates for units and future units that we'll be seeing coming to global in the near future. We've already got Fang and the updates to the Final Fantasy XIII units now. I have tested them actually quite a bit since this morning. And one of my biggest issues isn't that... Okay, so just to clarify my thoughts on the Final Fantasy XIII units after their update. I'm still confused as to what Hope does and how to get him to do things properly. Maybe turning off building block would help. It feels like he does that and just kind of... Like, he can actually get his hate down pretty low with that. I have seen people come from across the map with him in the dead middle to attack my people on the other side instead of him. But he doesn't really do much, and his damage doesn't seem to be that great. And despite there being some tech in his kit, like I'm just not sure what this unit's supposed to be. I tried switching him in for Sylvie, thinking he's maybe kind of brawly support in a similar sort of way, and I can't figure it out. His limit burst looks pretty ridiculous, especially for a free unit. That's cool, but I never saw him use it. He's not very aggro, so maybe I've really got to fine-tune his kit and turn off a lot of things so that he actually uses it. It feels like he'd be a lot more powerful because, especially with these units, and this is a trend that I'm going to talk about during this video, two trends that I want to make a note of within the way that units have been coming out recently. And actually, let's back up just a little bit more, all the way to Dario, because this is kind of the beginning of this. There are some outside examples of this that I think factor into this and what we should be expecting. I'm not sure exactly what, maybe Earth or Dark, and maybe like Brawler or DPS, maybe even Tank, except I don't know. I don't think that the Ashen King is going to be a tank. Definitely more of a brawler. He might be tough, but neither of those elements, while they're not getting newer tanks like every other element seems to be getting right now, because it feels like they want to run a full tank cycle for all 8 elements to really allow people to cover their bases, maybe so that they can even really do some crazy stuff that these newer tanks are going to have to keep up with. And I think we're starting to see that in the updates. That's the second trend. So we're seeing a lot of tanks and we're seeing a lot of really busted updates. And well, the first tank in this newer series is Dario. Since recording this, I'm realizing that actually there are a number of limit burst upgrades that I missed while I was not covering WotV for a very short period of time last month, and a number of them have been pretty impactful. I had heard about one of them already in advance, but if you'll just kind of follow what I'm doing on screen, you'll see the way that you can check for any that you missed. If you rely on my shorts to keep you notified about these things, you can just flip through your units and see what's available. This one is for Wind Glassy, and it's going to give her courage, which is actually a thing that a number of other units are going to be getting in this way, and thankfully a number of units that really felt like they needed courage. And speaking of a unit that needed courage and now is getting a great upgrade, this limit burst enhancement, among other things that are going to help her with Drain Force, also gives sure hit evasion. And she's already one of the most evasive characters in the game, and an on-ramp into Earth evasion, so great. We don't really start seeing the busted updates until Final Fantasy XIII. Now, unfortunately, while they are absolute walls of text in most cases that have been added to these limit bursts, you have to get them to use it. Lightning is so brutal and also kind of fragile that she goes in, she life siphons, she tears everybody apart, there's follow-up damage, she's really devastating. So that in matches that she's doing good, she never gets around to using her limit burst. And in matches that she's doing poorly, she doesn't survive to use her limit burst. It's a little bit of a problem. Snow I haven't tested out as much since his LB upgrade, but I did pull him actually and lightning all for 12k. Took me 10k to get to Snow, and then I changed up for the guaranteed UR, got a lightning, and got a double shard dupe, which maybe is a thing. Like if you get a dupe of one of these characters or pull one of them naturally, you get 80 shards instead of 40 if it's not your first copy. I don't know exactly what the mechanics on that are, but I got a bunch of lightning shards. I'm not even going to really build her for that account, but I figured why not. Anyways, I'm building Snow to be a strike attack resistance breaker. This is going to help me get into a lot of other teams. It doesn't necessarily make me better into Soul, necessarily, especially if he spreads that around the team. Not necessarily wanting to play Snow into Fire, but Fire is somewhat weak, and some of its newer stuff is focused around anti-strike, so this is an interesting counterbalance in his LB. And of the three, even though I haven't tested him yet, I definitely feel like he would probably be the most likely to use his new limit break upgrade. So in terms of like how much power has been pumped into PvP through these three units, I think most of that is practically going to come in through Snow. I think that there's a lot of opportunities in like manual play or within PvE content to really utilize Lightning's LB, just to kind of, and I think it would be particularly devastating if it hits. And then Hope's LB is almost so good that it gives me hope for Hope, but I can't get the boy to use it. It would make him pretty well immune to damage for a little bit, in addition to the fact that it would be, I think, the largest attacking power reduction that we've seen applied to its target. So it's pretty strong. But that being said, these are just limit burst upgrades, and we are going to see some more of that, but we're also going to see other types of updates coming in the weeks after Final Fantasy VII. So new units that we're going to be getting Uldoa and Volke. We're going to be talking more about those units later. I've already talked about Uldoa because I'm super excited for her. Volke just came out today, I want to say, for JP, so it's still kind of early going for him, but I do have the data. I could take a look at him, but I think what I'm more excited about is all of these unit upgrades, and I'm going to go through two of those in this video because they're the ones that I'm least excited about. So I'm not going to be doing shorts for them, but depending on how people react to this video, and you actually have to engage with the post if you want to see this happen for more than maybe one unit, I will post some of these update shorts a little bit earlier than usual because I am excited for them. Currently there's a poll going on the channel, and whoever wins that, I'll post a snapshot of who's winning right now. Whoever wins that, I'm gonna do early for sure, but I might do a couple others. And the two that I don't want to do, just because I think both of these units are kind of bad. Velric had a moment, but, and I think his upgrade plays into it, but I also think it's maybe one of the weakest of all of these. So let's talk about him first, since I am kind of least impressed with it. Now, he's already got all sorts of upgrades, so he's getting a limit burst upgrade this time, which kind of limits the amount of power that's being added to him, but a good limit burst, especially for a unit that uses it early and often, is really going to increase their power, especially in arena and one-shot formats. So I'm just going to read all of it out instead of focusing on just what's getting added to it. It now decreases slash resistance by 38% for target. So this is very similar to what happened for Snow. This is going to be another attack type super break. And then we have defense penetration for himself for 3 turns by 40. So you're not slash resisting this. You're not defense resisting this, at least up to 40%, which is very significant. Even if you have very high levels of slash resistance or defense penetration, it's going to guarantee that even against the toughest of tanks, this does some damage. Even if his base stats aren't there for supporting slash penetration or defense penetration. 240 mod is huge. There is a 67% chance to inflict disable for 3 turns. and it's going to absorb 30% of damage done for the next 3 turns. I don't think that that means that this skill drains and it's now only 33 AP. It didn't get a range increase. We see that with some of these, but this is quite a bit. Just for this skill alone, while the rest of his kit is kind of unimpressive and vanilla, I do want to say, as a Nightblade, he is at least very good in PvE because of chaining with this skill right here, which is Drain Rush. And you'll notice that his Drain Rush has actually been upgraded twice, once to double the amount that it absorbs, all the way up to 60%. So Drain Rushing after LB for him now absorbs 90% of damage done, but it also has been upgraded up to a 200% mod. It is a 3-hit skill, and he has 4 casts at only 22 AP. This will demolish things. And it's going to be basically a full heal for him. And I think this skill was broken when he was first introduced and he was not so powerful. And it was in part because the skill did a lot more damage than intended and absorbed a lot more than intended. I don't remember exactly because I definitely wasn't playing him at the time because he looked bad on paper. And when they adjusted him to fix that, he continued to be bad. But I mean, given some of the things that have happened in that LB, like, the damage of this is going to go up significantly. It's after that, you know, because you're getting both, well, at least for that one target, which may not be there very long after getting hit with that LB, they have their slash resistance down. Velric himself will have 40 defense penetration and an additional 30% damage absorbed. So this is going to be 90% damage absorbed with 40, at least minimum, defense penetration, 200 mod, 3 hits. It's going to chain. I mean, there's ways to deal with this, but this is going to be particularly nasty. Like, unfortunately, I feel like that's kind of the only 2 good things in his kit. Does he have Drain Rush? He does not have Drain Rush. Okay. Wait. He does not have Drain Rush. He can consume his own HP for things, which is interesting. But, you know, maybe the best person to utilize that kind of soldier tech, because he could probably get it back pretty consistently. And also, he could drain his HP to do more damage to get the HP absorb if it's after Limit Burst. I think this might not make him terrible. I mean, this is a lot. This is pretty significant. And I had forgotten the part about the slash resistance break and the mod increase myself. So this is actually more significant than I thought it was going to be, but I would say he's starting from kind of a bad place. So for a unit of his age, just not the best. Even now, I would say. And also remember that that's the most limited way that they could possibly upgrade power. So even giving a lot of power to this one skill isn't... What is happening here? Isn't doing as much as it might seem, because they're only really going to be casting that once. But then again, in one-shot formats like Arena, that could mean a lot, especially if they use it early and often. Then we're going to talk about Howla. This guy's always been really disappointing to me. Theoretically, he has really high damage because he's had a pretty ridiculous breaks. But, like, keeping him alive to break someone and then exploit that has always been difficult because he's such a glass cannon. Now, he did get some interesting stuff like spear penetration, slash attack up, and decreases healing power. This is a pretty interesting skill. But this is going to be another LB increase. This LB is getting a massive range increase, which I think is a lot more important. So compared to Velric, because you want, when you're basically putting that many buffs on an LB, it is doing dual purpose as damage and buffing, right? So you want to be able to get it up kind of during your buff turns in a way, or slightly outside of that. You want it to have a very high range, and a higher range in other parts of your kit. While I don't think that was as effectively done with Velric, I think that increasing the range of this, even though they didn't decrease the AP consumption, increasing the range of this makes it a lot more likely that this skill gets out in front, and I think that's kind of a big deal. So, just like always, it decreases wind resistance by 38 for 3 turns for target, sensing kind of a pattern here with what Velric had. Spirit penetration here would have been kind of nice, maybe, to kind of keep up with that. But again, I think the Tekken giving it extra range is probably more important. 200 mods, so the mod didn't go up. But check this out. It has a one-time full damage reduction shield. Now, shading moves kind of trivialize that a bit, but for such a glass cannon, and for so many glass cannons that are capable of high damage, being able to survive that one more turn can really make the difference. Adding this to Ruinstern, for instance, who is also getting an upgrade right now via Limit Burst enhancement. Adding that to Ruinstern really brought him back into the game. He wasn't quite the place he was in the Dark Bros like year 1 meta, but when basically he was one of the only 100 cost units in the game, that was good. It definitely brought him back in and proved that he still had potential just by giving him that automatically. What I'm not as excited about is Decreased Bravery 25 for target, just because what you would really want off of Decreased Bravery is to turn them into a chicken. But technically, decreasing their bravery by 25 does do a number of things. It can turn off their ability to activate their counters more reliably. So you could think of this as kind of being reaction block. It should also turn down their damage and should also turn down their defenses a little bit. So this is kind of like an all stats break. You know, bravery is a really powerful stat, so this definitely does things, but at the same time, like, your chances of actually turning someone into a chicken with a skill like this, which is again like the big thing, you know, like just thinking if this were Toad instead, it would be a lot more reliably devastating than just being, oh yeah, that's a neat little bonus. But that being said, it is a neat little bonus. This definitely does do things, and you know, it's pretty good. All of that being said, and as impressed as I might sound by some of those, even though I didn't like either unit before that update, and I still think it's a lot of power for units that have really out-of-date kits, really vanilla kits by modern standards, because we're used to getting their coolest skills as the, okay, well they got that in a sub-job, I guess that's okay, in addition to a really nutso main job. So it's almost like there are oops all sub-jobs at this point, and I think actually both of them really characterize that, because they were some of the first good examples of their sub-job, and then they quit making good examples of that. So like, the power peaked and then started becoming available commonly on sub-jobs of better units. So while they're like putting these big modifiers that really change them and really like give them a modern buff and damage in a skill is pretty cool, and is one of the more effective ways to boost them. But at the same time, it's kind of limited, and especially in like guild battle applications, this probably isn't going to bring a lot of these units back as consistently, because again, you can't use your limit bursts as consistently. There is actually an exception to that, but we'll get to that in the shorts. I just wanted to talk about these units for a little bit and just kind of note that it seems like we're getting a modern tank rotation that likely started with Dialdo, Roth, so that's Dark Earth, and then we have, let's see, I mean, Summer Glaciella, but that feels kind of rough, so that would be Water. We don't really have one for Lightning, but we have one for Wind, we have one for Ice, we have one for Fire. So it looks like Lightning and Light might be due for tanks in the near future. Just saying, it seems like they're trying to complete the rotation. Honestly, with the Ashes the Apocalypse, it seems like they're kind of rushing it a little bit. And also this means that all of them are limited tanks, which probably makes Summer Glaciella a more intentional choice. You know, I just tried to downplay that by saying, oh, but she's limited. But actually, they're all limited. And even the introduction to the cycle was limited. Now also all semi-limited, which isn't as bad as Summer Glaciella, which is kind of an extra layer of insult to water if we don't see a water, a lightning, and a light tank coming in the near future. But it definitely feels like they're building up to some bigger things, and we're going to need bigger walls to hold things back. And we're, because of that, seeing more and more capable tanks. So I think it's a really good investment, depending on what you're going for, depending on what weapon types you're going for and stuff, to pick one of these guys as your new tank if you find that appropriate. Even though I'm a little bit hesitant at this point on pulling unlimited units, I think the Ashes of the Apocalypse tanks are a really great series. I didn't think that Dario was going to be as good as he is, and he is really good, and he does, interestingly enough, have really good synergies, and also really good synergies with the same kind of rainbow composition I think Uldoa will do even better in. So I'm super excited for Uldoa, can't wait to get her, hopefully get a couple copies, because I have different applications I'd like to try for her. And I think, you know, what I was intending on saving for her and getting her, maybe not even the best application of her at this point, because I think she could do really well as really one of the first solid tank mages that we've seen in a long time, which means that now you could make a max power all mage team that is also relatively balanced and durable and potentially very anti-magic, and also maybe just really with a collective power not unlike a Marlboro's breath. Just statuses galore coming from these units. I don't remember exactly if Uldoa is a great example of that, but as the tank she doesn't necessarily have to be, but it would help. And, you know, Dario isn't the biggest example of that either, but he can Berserk, which is particularly good against other mages, and he is an anti-magic tank. And he can also Confuse, which is pretty effective against everybody. And then looking into that type of synergy even more, we're starting to see a place where Veritas of the Waters could, in a month or so when people actually have her built out, actually really shine. So Veritas of the Waters and Uldoa, the technical tactician, you know, these two could really work well together. But I think maybe even an ideal third for that, any Light Helena fans out there, I think she might be kind of ideal for this too. So light, water, and ice. Interesting team, but you know, lots of cool things coming in the future, and I can't wait to see what new updates are coming down the line. In fact, no, I'm not really seeing anything new. It looks like no updates, just Volke. Cool. Well, maybe we'll get the updates in a couple of days or something. Maybe Volke isn't live yet. I forget how WotV Calc works and how early they get the information. But thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the new player playlist if you're newer to the game or returning. I've also recently put out a number of contents. Look into my more recent video feed if I haven't organized the playlists yet. And you should see all sorts of things that'll help you kind of know what to do to get yourself modernized for PvP and to know really how to compete. Because there's a lot to it. A lot of things have changed. There have been a lot of new systems that have been impactful, and you need to know how to min-max those to, you know, increase your chances of success without spending all of your waking hours figuring out how to play War of the Visions. And hopefully I can help you hit the sweet spot on that. So if that's what you're into, like and subscribe. Also check out the link in the description for access to more Jackie Fox content, books, and the like, all available all over the interwebs, all available through that link in the description. And with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.